2024 has been an incredible year for Bitcoin, and we've seen a bit of action in the altcoins so far. Now, since 2013, crypto has had a massive bull run every 4 years. So 2013, 2017, 2021, and now we're entering 2025. So the question is, does Bitcoin continue to go crazy this year into 2025? And do altcoins absolutely go to the moon in 2025? Well, let's take a look at the markets of where money flows, as well as crypto specifically, to see what the price action suggests. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you, like me, came into crypto because you realize there's massive potential here for life-changing gains over a greater 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for a discussion on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place and with the right family, the Rainmaker family. Now, the reason I created this channel is because I was once new to crypto myself 7 years ago, almost 8 now. And back then I was looking for a crypto channel or group that understood crypto as an investment and discussed the most important things about investing in crypto, like the 4-year investment cycle, specific projects and the pros and cons of those projects, the risks, the real risks, guess the upside if it came together well. And I didn't find that, so we created it. And I say we because it isn't just me anymore. It's a family of rainmakers, and you'll see them here in the chat. You will see some in our free Telegram group. The link to that is below. You will definitely find them in our private Patreon group that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. And there's a link below to the Patreon. The Patreon is where you have to actually subscribe to the Patreon. That will then give you access to the Rainmaker private Discord. And this is where the best discussion and best info is. There are massive other benefits too. You will find out if you join us there. Some of them are not announced publicly at all. Now, do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul, who is joining us from Definity, he invests in many, many different things, and none of this to be taken as financial advice. It's Friday. Usually we do this on Wednesdays, but we got some massive holidays going on. So thank you to Paul for being flexible and joining us and making today happen.
Sure thing. It's always a pleasure. Had a few days off and things have got a little quieter, haven't they? So it's nice to get back and start having a look at the markets. I'm not expecting there to be all the numbers that we normally have watching the show, because people will be off doing other things and maybe have kind of turned the screens off for a bit, but that's all understandable. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that still are going on behind the scenes, and very much what we saw actually on the day that we did the last show on the Wednesday. We had a Fed announcement which we discussed what could potentially happen, that the Fed might indicate that there'll be less interest rate cuts than the market was thinking, which is pretty much what happened. And that's why we saw that big knee-jerk reaction sell-off. But I think it's important to unpick what the market's thinking about that and where that puts us in the context of the risk-on story and how that's going to pan out potentially into the new year and beyond.
So where are we with with regards to the risk-on story?
Well, I think it's fairly clear that when you've had a equity market that's risen the way it has in America in this way over the course of from the October 22 low all the way up to where we were last week, it's to be expected that you're going to have some form of correction, especially when the expectation has been for interest rate cuts. And it's very much a sell the rumor, buy the fact, or buy the rumor, sell the fact setup. When you give the market or tell the market what you're going to do, it becomes less about that, becomes kind of factored into the price, and you should expect the opposite. So, you know, I don't think the market. I mean, Eve mentioned, like, I was tongue in cheek saying, "Look, I'm going to try and be clever and pick a top here," and that was, I suppose, instinctively one way of me thinking we've hit some really good levels. It's nearly the end of the year. There's people with tax bills to pay, and it might be that you see a bit of a correction, and then you get a story where the Fed kind of put the tail on the donkey and say, well, actually, we're not going to cut interest rates as much next year, which is kind of what you'd expect them to say anyway, because the stock market is up a lot. And if the stock market's up a lot and commodities are rising, you've got this underlying inflationary pressure. So it kind of felt a little bit uneasy that there was this expectation that there'd be even more interest rate cuts going into next year. So that wasn't a surprise. So it's just, all it's meant is that the market sort of took a step back and needed a break, and that includes Bitcoin. So what we're getting is a sideways market, but in the background, you've also got the dollar rising, which isn't enough for it to start to cause some big problems. But I don't think they'd want it to be too much stronger. Otherwise, it's going to start to drag on the stock markets. And it's a competitive world out there. So the other countries, major economies, I'm not saying that the UK is one, but we've got a new government here, and they certainly are going to want to put their stamp on growth. And at the moment, they're doing a terrible job. So it might be that they start to do things that are politically going to help the market move higher. And in Europe, the same thing, and in China, in the same thing, and Japan, the stock market seems to be going up as well. So it's not that the dollar strength is a massive problem, but it's gonna be a stone in the shoe for this market rally. And when you've got two things coming together, you've got potential interest rates that aren't going to be cut, and you've got a stronger dollar. Those are two things that can weigh on the market. So it's almost like we need a bigger correction in the equity market in order to convince the Fed out of their let's not cut interest rates any further, which then becomes a positive factor, and interest rates then get cut, if you see what I mean. It's almost like it's playing chicken with the market. So whilst all this indecision is going on, I think we're just going to be in for a bit of a consolidation over the next few weeks, probably into the middle of January, before things start to become clearer. But one thing's for certain, the move up in the dollar, something was behind that, and it wasn't really clear what was behind it in terms of, was it political problems, geopolitical problems, situation in Russia, obviously, situation in the Middle East, which seems to have calmed down, or was it something else? And it seems it was the something else, which was that the market was anticipating the Fed saying that they weren't going to cut interest rates. And therefore, that move has all been driven by rates, by a change in rate expectations. So the question is now we've got this change in rate expectations. What does it mean? Does it mean that they really are going to raise or not cut interest rates? Are they really going to hold rates steady and not cut them next year, which is effectively a rise when the market was expecting a cut? And it kind of shifts sentiment the other way a little bit. There is now more scope for disappointment in the dollar bulls if they don't, if any weakness comes out in any of the numbers between now and sort of January, February time, then that plan may go to the wayside. And of course, you've got Trump coming in as well, and whether he exerts political pressure to reverse this, that we'll have to wait and see. But the dollar definitely has been much stronger than I certainly anticipated. From that 100 level, it's risen, to 108. But on that announcement, it's not gone any higher. Now, that doesn't mean it can't go any higher, because the market can do what it wants. But I'd be really interested to see if in this sort of quieter period, if the dollar starts to turn down again, that would then tell me that the market anticipated rates to go to be held steady, but they're actually going to start to back away from that view. And it could be that we're going to get maybe one or two more cuts, which will then put the risk on. It will add a lot of fuel to the fire of the risk on argument. But despite all of this, and just to summarize, I don't think anything really is going to change for next year because all the trends are still up. It's just a question of we're going to get a correction. How long will those corrections last? Will the dollar be going down or will it be going up in that environment? And if it's going down, I think that's going to be a fantastic boost, like an extra boost. And if it's not, I don't think it's going to necessarily change the direction, but maybe the speed of the move.
Makes sense. Why don't we take a look at some of the charts you're looking at, like the dollar price?
Yeah, it's
where money is flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, it's a lot easier to look at the chart and to than to describe it. But this is the move up in the Dow Jones. And what I was talking about here was the low that we saw in October 22 when it was really, really bearish. Then we got another low in October 2023, and then it broke into a new high, and the trend has been up. Now, very nice move on the way up, but is it realistic to expect everything just to keep going up in a straight line? Not really. In the final phases of a bull market, you get this acceleration and panic buying, and you don't want to see that too early. Otherwise, it means that we're near the end. So it's much better that we do see an upward trend punctuated by these shakeouts. And it's been a bit of a shakeout. We've got 3 weeks to the downside, and now we're having a bit of a bounce off 42, but it's certainly not a overall bearish picture. And it could come all the way back down to 40,000. It's still being an upward trend. All the moving averages are still moving up. So, it's to be expected. Transportation index has failed on a key high, but that's still got rising lows. That's still bullish. The Nasdaq is barely showing any signs of a reversal. I do think that this bar does stick out as a corrective bar, and it should at least go sideways and maybe even come back to this 20,000 as support. But the trend is still up. There's still a long way to go to reverse this trend, and there's certainly not enough volatility to do that either. So all that's suggesting is the bull market is still there. It's still on, and there's nothing in probability to change that view. Now, the VIX index spiked up, I think, much more than it should have done on that news because the market didn't move down that much. But it's quickly reversing. And yes, we're in this quieter period where volumes have gone down. And that's one good reason to perhaps hedge your positions. S&P, very similar. It's come off the high, but the trend is basically still up. Now, if we take this low out at 58.38, sure, it could go down a bit more, and why not? That wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. It's just how quickly it moves down as to whether it becomes a problem. So European markets generally looking good. FTSE is going sideways, but that's in quite a nice consolidation that should break out. But if we look at the European market, it's actually very interesting. The European stock market has pretty much done nothing all year. It's been in a big range. So compared to the US, it's really not done well. So I think they're going to have to start stimulating their economies next year for fear of falling behind. And I think that's what is going to drive the next kind of bull phase. Europe and China and the US all going together in synchronicity, and potentially Japan as well, which is now pressing towards these highs. That was the big August 5th collapse that saw a bit of a shakeout in equities, but the market is still going up. China, big correction, but that's now rallying back up again. Hong Kong, same deal. We'll have to see where that goes. Precious metals in a bull market. Generally, gold and silver are trying to move higher. Gold's leading the way. But if we get to the US dollar, the dollar index, here we have this very strong series of weekly rises punctuated with one correction, and then we're going up again. Now, this is the move that happened on the Fed announcement. So what's happened is we've got a spike up, but if we go into the daily chart, it's spiked up, but it's come off again. So this pattern here is usually, to be fair, a bullish pattern where it sticks near the high in a little triangle and breaks higher. But the only thing that's slightly leaning against that is that we've got news to suggest it should go higher. And when the two get put together, I think you've got to be a bit more cautious about it breaking up. So if it takes out 107.5 this week to the downside, I think that would be a really interesting signal that this is topped out. And we'll have to see how it, if indeed it can sort of build on that momentum to the downside. But we have to see that go. So at the moment, it's unclear. It's stuck in this range, and it's only on a psychological basis that I would even suggest it goes lower, because that trend is still up, and you've got to be very careful about fading trends like this. So in terms of the interest rate market, the 3-month market is actually still pointing to lower interest rates. So despite what the Fed is saying, and this again ties into the potential for disappointment from the point of view of the dollar bull. So people who are buying the dollar saying, okay, they're going to raise interest rates, or at least they're going to hold them interest rates. There's going to be a premium over the rest of the world. That's why I want dollars. We're getting the bullish dollar story in, and that I think is an important signal as to why it will go in completely the opposite direction. It's just a question of when that starts. Going back a few months, probably about 6 months, there was a few major investment houses who were agreeing with the kind of bearish dollar view, and that's kind of worried me, really. I'd prefer it not to make sense from a fundamental point of view. It tends to move in a much more contrary way. And so whilst the technicals at 100 were so compelling, actually what the market did was completely the opposite. Now, you might say it's because Trump got in and people are buying American assets, and you can always explain these things away. But I think ultimately it is a call on whether interest rates are going to go up or down. And it's also a reflection of the outperformance of the US market, which, whilst it might continue going up next year, I think there could be a big catch up in the rest of the world that will kind of push those ratios back the other way, away from America and towards not necessarily a bearish signal, but just maybe it'll slow down a bit and everything else will catch up, and the demand for dollars could go down.
So, Paul, you mentioned that things like the dollar narrative and dollars being so strong narrative is building and getting so much consensus that it'll play out that way, that it probably plays out the opposite. Why does that happen so often?
It's usually that's a good question. It's almost like once everybody sees it, the market's kind of moved on from that position. And so, for example, you probably got some people buying Bitcoin over 100,000, and that's not to say that it won't go higher. But if you're waiting that long to become a bull, then it's almost in the short term, the breakout happened around 70,000. So you're kind of, your timing is slightly off. You're dancing at a different beat to the market. So if you're waiting for the dollar to rally from 100 to 108 to decide to become bullish, then it's almost like, well, we've had that move. The market's anticipated that move. Now we've got to see what the market is not anticipating. What the market's not anticipating is not obvious. And what is not obvious is what they will fight as it moves in that direction. So the market anticipates what most people can't see. So, for example, throughout the last couple of years, despite bank failures, despite geopolitical risks, despite everybody saying it's too high, the stock markets continue to go higher. And the same thing's happened with Bitcoin. Despite it being in an upward trend around 50 to 60,000, people were questioning whether it should have been in a bull market, and saying it was, the bull market was over. So but yet there was more to come. And did the market anticipate the Fed? Did the market anticipate Donald Trump getting in? Perhaps, but it probably would have gone there anyway, and which is something we've discussed many times on the show before. But it's just that the overall underlying engine of the economy, the US, is doing well. So whether the economists can see it or not is kind of irrelevant. So being contrary, and like right now we've got one of those situations where I think the market is starting to expect interest rates starting to expect that the market will go higher, or maybe because of Trump there was a bit of late buying that needs to shake out, and once it's shaken out then it will continue its bull market in the same way that Bitcoin became, I suppose, in the short term very compelling because of Trump, because you had a good reason to buy it, and because it broke this massive level, that you've got some late players who've come in, and that again needs to be shaken out before it will then move up again. So it's one of the most consistent elements of the markets to be contrary, and I think most of the time it's a combination of looking at the charts and trying to work out what the sentiment is behind it. And it just seems that it's always what the market doesn't expect as to what it actually does.
It's funny how it plays out that way. And so, like, essentially to summarize it, if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're doing it wrong. Like, yeah, I've just noticed the numbers since being in crypto that 90% of people really do rather poorly in crypto investment, even though this technology is unlocking some things the internet couldn't do prior to it. And there's going to be a major shift that cryptographical encryption blockchain really changes the internet. People are trading it wrong. They come in late after everyone agrees Bitcoin's going to do tremendously well. They then buy only to really get surprised by it flipping around the other way. And it seems that plays out in every single market, whether it's real estate, stocks, other things. By the way, we are live, everyone. Mike Jones, thank you for the super chat. We will add that in ahead of the other things. $20 super chat. We'll look at NXRA. We're going to take a look first at Bitcoin as we dive into crypto, and then we'll throw NXRA in there, and then we'll look at XRP, XLM, HBAR, DEVVE, WAN, Bumper, and then some other ones like VPAD. Thank you for that. Cool. Good to see everyone adding your suggestions in there on some of the different ones. What do you see in the Bitcoin chart, Paul?
Well, overall, the trend, as we were saying before, is to the upside. It hit a high of 108,000. So it pretty much cleared out anyone who was trying to short it prior to, from hitting that 100,000 or going slightly over. I think you'd been fairly brave to hang on to it as it was going at least 5% over that, and then 8% over that level. So that would have taken out anyone being short. And then, of course, the market then obliges with a correction. But this price action to me is looking like a short-term head and shoulders top, which would imply a correction. And if we can look at it in terms of, say, this area here where you get a breakout and then a correction, we just look for that sort of move, maybe sideways for a bit to lower, and then a continuation of the bull market. Now, quite how long that will take, I'm not sure, but it feels as though, like I say, maybe some late comers need to be taken out, but it's not a trend-ending signal at this point. It's still a correction that might even be light enough to get us to 88,000, that sort of level, and then back up again. But in the short term, I think Bitcoin going lower is not a bad thing at all. I don't want to see it at 120. Well, we talked about the 120,000 level, which I do want to see it at, but I don't want to see it in this year. I want to see it next year after a consolidation, because as I was saying before, if the market runs up too fast, that's more a late stage play of it heading towards the final stages of the bull market. So I'm quite happy to see it correct, consolidate, gather, interest goes down, and then we take our next move to the upside. Maybe we'll see some transference into the altcoins at this stage. It'll be very interesting to see in the next few weeks if they outperform Bitcoin. But for the moment, I would expect, I'd be anticipating some form of further correction. People might say it's because it's a thin market. I just think it's the breakout from 69,000, 70,000 to 108 is a very decent move, and why not have a correction here?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of, I've seen historically that things sometimes, well, 2017 was an interesting year. Right around the time a lot of people in the US were meeting for Thanksgiving, a lot of like Bitcoin ran further, altcoins ran further. And then in December, right around early December and Christmas time when families get together, that's when a lot of retail really FOMO'd in. Now, that was in the bull run year of 2017. So 2024 isn't that year. It was interesting watching 2021 play out, in that a lot of the action happened much earlier. So a lot of times we talk about Bitcoin and crypto cycle as being a 4-year cycle, but the halving doesn't actually take 4 years to happen. It's less than 4 years. And so things ran quite early in 2021. Then they pulled back, and then they ran again in October, but not quite making it to the November, December timeframe. So how will 2025 play out? Probably an earlier cycle. So it won't be like 2017 where a lot of the run happened late in the year. I expect it will happen sooner. We did see some massive activity after Trump's election, like starting in November, that a lot of things took off. In fact, some of the altcoins that we'll look at, some of the blue chip altcoins, the ISO 220 coins, they ran tremendously. We'll take a look at those. Yeah, so Bitcoin's price consolidating. Let's take a look at this one from this super chat. If you could pull up NXRA, let's take a look at that. Then we'll take a look at XRP and XLM.
Okay, so not a whole lot of data on this, so it's going to be a bit tricky, especially without knowing much about it. I suspect there is more data. It's just that we haven't got it. Got a fantastic resistance point here at 11 cents, and ultimately for me, that is resistance here, support. That's where the big wood to chop comes from to break that. But it's heading towards that direction, which is good. So we got this breakout here at the 4 or 5 cent. Is it 5? Yeah, just below 5 cents area. So 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts got through it. It's come back, leaning on it. So this is reversing its trend, which is really good. You know, look at these 3 low points. One was I'm going to say that's the August 5th. I'm pretty sure it would have been around August 5th. Sell-off that attempted to touch on 3 occasions, indicating that is the low point, and it's now trending up. So it's fairly balanced because it's below that point. It's below this breakout point here, which completes the reversal pattern, having been higher. But I think that the overall direction. See, what we're looking at here is we got this trend down, and which is pressing downwards. We've got this base here, which is trying to push it up, and it's fairly balanced. So it's like, well, where is it going to go next? Given that we're in a macro bull market and everything, I always give kind of precedence to the broader direction of the trend, which I think is to the upside. So I would say it's a kind of 60-40 to the upside for me. And it will get even more interesting once we take this resistance out, which is the most recent high point. And pretty much once it gets through 11 cents, that's where things start to get really interesting. So I get more bullish as it gets confirmed, as the chart starts to turn around, as it starts to accelerate. I accept that there's different strategies. People may want to buy it lower down in anticipation of that, and that can work very well in these environments. So I'm slightly more cautious in approaching it in that way. So for me, it would be a buy. It would just be a small buy at this point, and I'd be looking to add to it as it trends up. But it's definitely putting some distance from this really important low area here. And if it got anywhere into this zone, I would call that a danger zone. I wouldn't want to be hanging on to it personally for fear of it breaking and going lower. So as long as the broader bull market is in effect, and as long as this doesn't start to deviate from that and become an outlier, I would say for me this is looking more bullish than bearish.
Great. This is an interesting one. I love viewer suggestions. There's tons of crypto projects. I don't have my eyes on all of them. There's a lot of them I don't. And this is one I haven't been familiar with at all. Here's the overall chart. Some interesting or curious things that I look at. First of all is their market cap. So they're at a $40 million market cap. That's fairly high for a fairly new project, but realize they were recently at almost 30 cents. They're currently trading at just under 5 cents. So they pulled back on 5/6 of their price, which is a big pullback. Now, when did it run? Back here in March. Well, what narratives were running in March? The AI narrative, but also this real world asset narrative. And I think that's where NXRA falls, is in the real world asset narrative. Now, there are a lot of real world asset companies launching within crypto. Yeah, we're going to tokenize all these real world assets. Like I've seen some real estate ones. I don't think a lot of these smaller projects that are launching with that in mind are going to make it long term. So there's a couple of questions I ask when I'm looking at projects. Will this project, be what tokenizes a lot of assets on the blockchain long term? Probably not. It'll probably be major players. Why? Because political power is one of the primary reasons. Number two, it's like tokenizing everything across tons and tons of different projects is going to create some integration problems. So there will probably only be a few things that major assets get tokenized on because of interoperability. So is NXRA going to be that? I don't know that it is. That doesn't mean it's not interesting for this bull run, because this narrative is going to run, and everything in this narrative that looks halfway decent for the short term will probably run. So what you're really seeing is the narrative pullback. Interesting thing though on the tokenomics. So I was looking at the market cap, $40 million market cap, fully diluted value, 42 million. Okay, so even though it's been out not that long, all the tokens are in circulation until you notice there is an infinite max supply. So that's like, we would need to know more information about how many additional tokens can come into circulation and what that looks like, because that's a concern. It might not be a concern if we find out, okay, 4% more tokens come into circulation every year. That's fine. But we want to make sure it's not something like 20 or 25 or 30, because that will really act as a brake on appreciation of the token, even during a bull run. So I like CoinMarketCap. Usually gives a lot of information related to things. I like that it tells us assets by holdings, and it looks like 85% of the holdings are in smaller wallet amounts. So that's good to see. Only 14% in wallets that hold up to $100,000 worth of tokens, and 0.15% in some big whale wallets. It does say in this one that whales hold 52%. I guess that doesn't seem to jive with what this says. So I'm curious as to what is differentiating this. 44% by longer term holders, and 49% by cruisers, and 5% is being actively traded. Interesting. Cool. What would I rate this for? I couldn't buy it till I know a better answer to that token, but I do like the price action. I do like that it's come down. You see here a low, You're seeing a higher low. It looks like it's going the right direction. And I do think the real world assets thing takes a run. So it would be a cautious, well, it would first be answer the question of, I need to see the tokenomics to see how, like, what causes more tokens to come into circulation, which is what this max supply, infinite max supply suggests. And if I was happy with that answer, then it would be a buy at this price. All right, let's take a look at XRP, Stellar, Hedera, because those ISO coins have been going crazy. Let's see what that's looking like.
Yeah, XRP, we discussed the breakout a while back, and what we can see from a big picture point of view is this kind of triangular constriction and how it's, you know, now moved into what we would call a new impulsive trend. And it's testament to a lot of the coins that are just doing nothing for ages and then suddenly break out, which we'd expect to see more of into next year. But as far as where it is in the trend, it's consolidated, but it's still consolidating near the high. If we put this on a daily chart, this is a weekly chart, but on a daily chart, it's still near the high. And this triangular constriction pattern is usually bullish. So the fact that it's holding into these highs and hasn't corrected all the way back here, given the sharp move to the upside, suggests that we will see a further move, even though that might sound like a highly unlikely play, given it's already had its big move. Inverted commas, it's had its big move. So for me, it would still be a buy, and I know that sounds like a difficult kind of concept to get your head around when it's already potentially really expensive. Again, I'm putting that in inverted commas, but this has been a long consolidation, and when you get breakouts, it's usual for the markets to move well beyond people's expectations from it. So, you know, obviously I could be wrong, and if there is a correction, I don't think it's going to change the overall direction of the trend. It would just be, you know, a period of consolidation that would eat into this rally and into this, you know, this strong move up here, before it then comes back to this $280 area and then goes for the all-time high. So it might be delayed from it, but at the moment it's still sticking in there and looking pretty strong. So technically, I feel it kind of justifies the bullish view. Now, I know when you start looking at the market cap and all those things, it's going to look like a bit of a crazy thing to say that it could be going even higher. But at the moment, that's what it looks like. So for me, it's bullish.
That's what people said when in 2021, some people called Tesla a buy against greater market sentiment. They said, it's so expensive already, it can't go up from here. And Tesla went up 700% that year. And so, you know, really, you kind of referenced this before, that when Bitcoin broke up above 75,000, that was the buy territory. And some people are like, it's so expensive. But now that it's at 100,000, it's well into the move, not just barely breaking out of the trend. And so what you're saying is XRP is just breaking out of the trend. And though we can't see the future, chances are this trend continues further to the upside, is what you're suggesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And same with, you know, things like Ethereum, which hasn't quite broken its equivalent key resistance point that Bitcoin has broken, but and maybe it'll be delayed for a bit, but when it does, we should see a very decent trend.
Yeah, agreed. So I was talking to this real estate developer last night that I've known for a while, and he's developing a whole bunch of land that he's building some really expensive houses on. And, you know, it's like a $200 million project that he'll probably make like $80 million on over the next like 5 years. And we were talking about crypto, and he's like, I just stay away from that stuff. It's just like magic internet money. And I was like, it's like blockchain and cryptographic encryption are like unlocking some things the internet couldn't do before, and they're really important for the future. of the internet technologies. Like, well, I only like the stuff I can tangibly touch and hold. And I said, that's okay for you because you've been in real estate and real estate development for 40 years. So you've already made your money, and in real estate, it takes money to make money. And so stick with what you're good at. Why even change? You have like good plans and everything laid out. But what about those that are stuck in this economy that don't have millions and millions of dollars to throw into real estate to make money from? What are their opportunities like? Oh yeah. Good question. It's like, yeah. So crypto and blockchain investment, smart blockchain investment is that place. Now, one of the things I like about XRP is I do think things are coming together, that XRP ends up being the financial rails that a lot of money transmits on. Do I know that for certain? No, they're just the leader in there. They've been around for forever, laying a base with the politicians across multiple countries. So not just the US, but the EU and Japan. I think XRP gets that there. So if they also get it with United Arab Emirates and over there, like there are going to be the financial rails. And if so, I think XRP goes a lot higher in the future. And so XRP for me is like a 10-year bet for people looking for a 10-year bet. They don't want to do real estate investment because prices are so expensive now, even having to come up with a 10% down payment or 20% down payment for an investment property. They don't have that kind of room. It's like XRP, I like for the long-term bet. Now, unfortunately, for a short-term bet, it's realized some of its gains, and it's now in this breakout zone. Like Paul said, it's not bad for a further trade to the upside. I'm just in crypto. The cycles are 4 years, and so squeezing out as much of the gains as I can in the final year of that 4-year cycle where all the action happens is what I'm interested in. So I don't XRP for a short-term bet. I do think it's going to go higher than here. I'm not buying it at that. And I have been waiting for a good entry point on XRP. Once I've made some gains from the riskier stuff that I'm in that I feel are more predictable. So I like XRP. Like I don't know when the financial rails get switched over and are really running on XRP. And maybe it happens as soon as this year. Things like that tend to take longer than you expect them to. So what I'm hoping is XRP gets cheap again in the coming bear market. And I'll be looking to make more blue chip bets then with part of my portfolio. And XRP would be an amazing one for that. So do I like it in the short term? Yes. Am I buying it? No, I'm hoping for things with a bigger chance for a higher breakout. But I think XRP is primed for further breaks to the upside in this coming bull market as our altcoins go crazy. So it's also a great long-term bet. So I do like things that are a good short-term bet and a great long-term bet. Am I buying it? No, I just don't know that it has enough swing left to the upside. And even if it were to go to $20 from here, this bull market, that's still only a 10x from here. A lot of what I'm in, I'm hoping does a lot more than a 10x. Cool. Let's take a look at, so for me, it's just a wait. Let's take a look at XLM.
Yeah, XLM, really like the big picture chart, this massive triangular constriction. We got to run up against this resistance point, 1, 2, third point, it's backed off. But I think that it will take it out, it will break out, and this will be an extended move. So we can kind of compress the chart and we'll be looking at move up here at some point. Will it do it this week? Probably not. It might take a bigger correction back to 25 cents or so before it has another go at it. But, you know, as long as it can just stay in this zone, it'd be knocking on the door of this really nice breakout. So short term, yeah, consolidation. It may mirror the move in XRP because it's making a similar consolidation. If we go into the daily chart, it's slightly softer. Like in XRP, it's more compressed and near the high, which is what you'd expect to see before a breakout. This is actually pulling away, which is different to this correction, which was it hit it and it was really sharp and it just came off in one sharp move, which was the beginning of a much bigger bear market. I don't think that's the case here. I think even though it's pulling away, it's doing it in a slightly different way, and it will just consolidate, and maybe not lead the breakout. Maybe others will lead the breakout, but I do think this move here has indicated that it's ready for its new bull market into next year. So this side of the year, obviously, there's not much left. I don't think a lot's going to happen, and perhaps even to the middle of January, maybe not a lot will happen. But further out, I think this has got great potential to break this high. And the closer it gets to it, if it starts edging back towards it, then I'm going to get really interested in a potential breakout coming a bit sooner. But where it can go from there is kind of mirroring what it's done here. So, I think we could be looking at a move certainly over $1 and maybe further than that. So short term, for me, it's a wait, but long term, I think it's a buy.
Yeah, so it hasn't broken through that yet, but you think probably sometime after January, after some more consolidation, it might be ready to do that.
Yeah, I'm just giving it a little bit of space. I mean, as I say, we've got not really much left of this year anyway.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of the year, it takes a bit of time for volume to come back in. You have to remember, so many people are on holiday at the moment that if we were to see everything go sideways, it wouldn't really surprise me. But once we've had that kind of like that sense of everybody's coming back from holiday, and then it's like, okay, let's go. It may go just before then, just before people come back, in order to make them really have to chase it higher. So that's what I think. I mean, this time of year is one where the market rests and people tend to have a bit of a break. And we had the run up, as we've seen in everything before, well, not absolutely everything, but in a lot of things before December, before Christmas. And so that's why I think it will be the other side of it is a calmer market, a consolidation. But next year, nothing's changed. I'm still bullish. So I think we've got to go with the things that have been strong, and this has been strong, prior, and the overall patterns always look good because it's way off the lows and it's got a lot of decent history. So in terms of expectation of what's going to be hot next year, I would say I'd be very surprised if this one isn't.
Agreed. So let's take a look back. XLM is one of those tokens been around for a long time. You can see it tradable all the way back here in 2014. So if you look back, I do like how CoinMarketCap does a good job telling you or allowing some space for the companies to really tell you about themselves. XLM is a peer-to-peer decentralized network created in 2014 by the Stellar Development Foundation. The network officially launched in 2015 with the purpose of connecting the world's financial systems and ensuring a protocol for payment providers and financial institutions. So this falls squarely within the ISO 20020 coins. And XRP, XLM, and essentially all those coins really took off after Trump's won the U.S. election. And so it went 5x. You can see it trading for about 10 cents here, just under 10 cents. It went to 55 cents and pulled back to 35 cents. This kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back is often what happens even in bull runs. And I think it's going to continue. I think sometime, I agree with Paul's timing that it might be February before things really resume running again. And I think as a lot of new people really start to wrap their minds around crypto, that the ISO coins are part of where that money is going to flow. Where can something like Stellar go? Well, you can go to $100 billion market cap, which is 10x from here. You can go higher. XRP's market cap is already at 122 billion. XRP can still go in this bull market. It can go 10x from here, maybe even 20x. And some people say, oh, those market caps are outrageous. They are, but doesn't mean it won't happen. Remember, XRP went to like $170 billion market cap in 2017. It flipped Bitcoin's market cap for like ever so briefly, but it did it already in 2017. So people say that can't happen, and it's like it already has happened. So Stellar, am I buying this? No, it's solidly in the blue chip category. I'm in riskier things for what my risk profile is. But if I were looking to get into some blue chips and just maybe take something where there's a lot of liquidity, if I were moving like $10 million into single positions, because I have a portfolio of $100 million, I want to take 10 different bets with $10 million in them. Stellar would be, I would personally like Stellar for that for myself if I were in that situation. So I like it. This price is nice. Pullback hasn't broken through yet. I do think it'll break through in the coming months. So it gets a buy from me on the blue chip category. Now, am I actually buying it? No, but I like it for that. All right, let's take a look at HBAR.
Yeah, so HBAR, very interesting chart in the short term. If we take a step back and look at the big picture, we can see that it's been kind of range bound for quite a few years. And the defining feature recently is this move, this outlier move that I'm going to say outlier. I mean, we've been expecting some form of strong catch-up play from the altcoins, given the big move in Bitcoin and the fact that everything we're expecting to be in a bull market. So it's had a really nice breakout. But where we can see the big level here is at 45 cents. It has to take that out to show that it's a multi-year, very unusual, inverted commas. This is going to be much stronger than people have expected. And it's really going to potentially outperform. Now, I think there's a good chance that it's going to do that next year. And it may even have a run up quicker. This is, again, a similar chart pattern to what we've seen in XRP. It's a triangular constriction. It's staying within the top end of the range. So it's moved up, but it's the gains are sticking is another way of saying it. And so usually when markets do that, consolidate for a few weeks, the next move is another sharp move to the upside. So short term, we have to allow in any market that's like this, we're playing the risky of the riskies in terms of altcoins. So you've got to allow for big potential swings. And as we know, they do come. So a move back down to, say, 14 cents is possible. I'm not saying it definitely will do that, but it is possible. But it would still be bullish at that point because it's only just corrected part of the move on the way up. What seems more likely is it would just go sideways for a bit longer at this upper end of the range and then make an attempt to break out on 45 cents, which is where, for me, it becomes really interesting. So on balance, for me, it's a buy. I like it because it's showing strength. It has broken out. It's making a good short-term pattern, and it's heading potentially towards some really good resistance that would kind of put some fresh air for it to head towards $1 and above in next year. So I want to see how this performs. If we don't look at it in the first couple of weeks of 2025, please do remind us to come back to it because it is one that I think we should keep our eyes on. So for me, it's a buy.
Great. I've really enjoyed talking to Tom Anderson. We had an interview with him not too long ago, and then we had an interview an Ask Me Anything interview with the spokesperson for DEVVE, Austin, recently. What's been interesting is talking about enterprise needs for blockchain, because we often have in our mind it's like, okay, everything's going to get tokenized, but we aren't usually, as crypto investors, involved in that world, and we don't think about the same questions. And so what's been enlightening is hearing Tom Anderson from DEVVE talk about this, because Hedera is the #1 enterprise blockchain out there. They've been around since they were raising funds, I think, in 2018, and I think CoinMarketCap does a good job telling us more about it. Yeah, so they did an initial coin offering in August 2018 and first launched open access to its mainnet for a year later in September 2019. I do like this. Look at most of this token investing has already happened. They're at the tail end of that. Most of that's already come into circulation. That's good news for HBAR. That will really help not not having these additional token supplies come into circulation. So that's good. Enterprises haven't really gone to blockchain yet, but I think they will in the future. And HBAR is the #1 player in that. So will it go great? I don't know. I'm taking a riskier bet on DEVVE, and it's riskier from the standpoint of DEVVE is relatively unknown. They have really, really good technology in this space, but connections matter. And there's nobody in this space that has better connections than Hedera. If you look at their governing council, it's like the who's who of the Fortune 50, really. And so as a lot of enterprises go to blockchain technology, probably Hedera is going to be the choice for many of those. The chart looks decent, right? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's not quite as like big on a pullback as I'd like to see, but it seems like it's consolidating here and hasn't had as much of a pullback. So it went from just over 4 cents to, about 8x there, and then or 9x, and has pulled back some. So it's seen some nice gains without as big of a pullback as I would like to see. Now, again, I'm not buying blue chips. It's in the $10 billion range. Where can something like this go? If a lot of enterprises really do go to blockchain in this bull run, as everybody wants to get on board with what's generally being accepted as the future, then Hedera can go really, really big. Like for a blue chip, it can go 20x from here, 30x or 40x, which is quite a big run for a blue chip. I would like to see a bigger pullback. That would be a juicier entry point. Again, I'm not buying blue chips. I'm just looking at this from a standpoint. If I were this cycle, and next cycle, I will be buying blue chips. Would I be interested if that fit my portfolio? And Hedera, probably, just because what I feel the potential upside of it is. Here was a great entry point. Down here, it's already realized some of its gains. So realize if it does another 40x from here, well, then that was, because it's gone like 6x to that point, that's a 240x overall. So really juicy gains have been missed. Well, when you miss something, you got to decide, do you still want to get on that boat, or do you want to just look for other boats? And so if I were in blue chips, well, some of the blue chips have already ran this cycle. And so a lot of those boats have partially sailed. And I'd be looking for the ones that I think still have enough run left in them to be interesting. And I think Hedera falls in that category. Let's take a look at DEVVE. Speaking of enterprise blockchains.
Yeah, so DEVVE, we were looking at this as it was making its base, and the breakout point was at 49 cents. There were some signs that it had changed its trend with this price action here, but we got the confirmation of the base through 49 cents. We're looking for the market to hit $1, big psychological level, which it did, and it corrected off there. And now it's coming back to retest that, which is a really good sign, because what it means is even though it's hit this big level, it's still knocking on the door of it. And it would suggest from 2 points. One is that it was a big resistance point psychologically, but two, it was a big level on the way down as well. So, people who bought it here, when they see sort of flat, they may want to exit their position and get out. So that's why it's chopping a bit of wood just below $1. But the upward pressure is still there. You see, we've got these rising lows. So I think this is going to go again. And it may happen fairly soon. So for me, whilst it's above 47, 49 cents, this breakout point, and above this trend line, it remains in a buy category, but it may be ready to squeeze up, much quicker than that. So, I'm not going to change the overall bullish bias that I have for it, but it'd be interesting to see whether it can get through this dollar a bit quicker than people have expected.
Yeah. I don't know how to say his name, but he says Hedera looks nice. Look, 1-day chart broke out and retest today. Yeah. I agree that the chart for Hedera looks good. Like, it didn't pull back as much because I think it wants to run. I do think enterprise blockchain is a bigger narrative within the space that enterprises really start getting into blockchain. I think this run, I think they're ready for it. And that's why HBAR looked even more interesting to me than Stellar Lumens. I think Stellar Lumens for blue chip looks interesting. But between those two, I like Hedera's area better. Real Randy Chavez says, "Ooh, DEVVE." Yes. Yeah, it really does look interesting. It didn't have much of a pullback, and it really wants to break out above that dollar range. Now, they've talked about a big announcement coming up with one of the largest exchanges in the world, and they've suggested that it's big enough it'll be on Fox News and Fox Business News and other major network channels, because one of the challenges with DEVVE is, like, almost nobody knows who they are outside of a few YouTube channels that have been covering them. So I think it's one of the greatest stories that most people don't know about yet. Now, one of the ones that really made me a ton of money last bear market was Axie Infinity. And when I talked to people about Axie Infinity, nobody knew what I was talking about for forever. And it was one of the biggest gainers. And they always had a really good story. They were one of the first blockchain games that actually was playable. They had land associated with it, even though the utility of the land wasn't decided yet. But those were some narratives that made sense, that blockchain unlocks the future of video games. And that was a major player in there. I think enterprise blockchain is a big deal, and a lot of people aren't thinking about it yet. But as blockchain's gotten fast enough for enterprises to use, I think a lot of them do go to blockchain. But they're not going to go to a public blockchain because they don't want everyone to be able to see every transaction. So they're going to go to a permission blockchain, and DEVVE is set up in a way that they can put nodes that work with each other in every jurisdiction, so that the nodes in the different jurisdictions can be compliant with whatever the laws are of that jurisdiction and still talk to each other. Very good setup. I've enjoyed learning from Tom Anderson because he's been thinking about these problems for a very long time. Now, he started working on DEVVE way back in 2015, so this also is not a new company. And really got further into it in 2016, started applying for some patents. They hold a lot of cool patents very few people have in this space of how things work, and they are blocking level patents, which means it would block competitors from being able to do the same. So I do think DEVVE this cycle is the biggest untold story that most people haven't told about. Now, I'm biased towards this. I have a huge position in DEVVE. It's one of my largest holdings in altcoins, and so maybe my bias clouds my judgment. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Axie Infinity was not one of my largest investments during the last bear market. Was a decent sized investment for me, but ended up being my biggest gainer. DEVVE I went really huge in because I do like what's going on here. Like, their market cap is $80 million market cap. So even though it's not as low as 12, 13, 14 cents, which I was screaming from the rooftops, this was way too cheap. It never should have got to this cheap. It's up from there. It's not near the same, but yet it's only at an $80 million market cap and could go up tremendously from here. The fully diluted market cap is only 270 million. And this is a layer 1 blockchain that can do 8 million transactions per second. and is in that enterprise blockchain space at a time when I think a lot of enterprises start looking to make blockchain deals and integrate blockchain into their technology. One of the things that need to happen, you need to have transaction speeds be increased from what Bitcoin and ETH could do. And both Hedera, I think Hedera can do 10,000 transactions per second with plans to make it faster than that, which is decently fast. If you think about it, American Express and MasterCard, I think they can only do 50,000 transactions per second across their network. So Hedera, if they're at 10,000 transactions per second and they can scale that up to 50 or 100,000, well, you know how many cards get swiped across the world with American Express and MasterCard. And Visa, 50,000 transactions per second can handle a lot of flow, but not like 8 million transactions per second can. And they can scale from there by spinning up additional nodes that handle some of the load so that their network is congestion proof. So I like the story behind DEVVE, and we'll see at this price, even it's still a buy, and it looks like it does want to run more. So here we go, a buy. Let's take a look at WAN chain. This is one of my longer investments that I've held, and I've held WAN chain since, well, I did take some profits in the last bull market, but just a little bit. I've held it since I started buying during the previous bear market. When it hit its lows, I was stocking up on WAN chain. Let's take a look.
Yeah. So basically with WAN chain, it's one of those, at the moment, it's just in its range. We've been waiting for a breakout for some time, and it put its low all the way down here, August 5th, that date that keeps coming out again. And it's now rising from there. It hasn't had its barnstorming rally like some of the other altcoins, but perhaps that's something we're going to look forward to in 2025. It's definitely making progress to the upside. It's just that it hasn't taken out some of the key resistance, 37 cents being one of them, and then above that, 51 cents. Those are the key levels it needs to break. And as we've seen, there are occasions when it does that extremely quickly, and so nothing appears to happen, then boom, off it goes. That's the sort of environment we're in. We've got some decent buying going on pullbacks, and I can understand a bit of frustration given that where we are now is pretty much where it's been for the last couple of years. But again, it's patience in this market, and when it all starts, you've got sort of 2 years worth of price action can happen in a couple of months, and as we go into 2025 and beyond, that's going to be more the norm, i.e. big volatile moves rather than big ranging price action. So am I bullish? Yeah, I think we've had to tread carefully at certain points, and we're not completely out of the woods with this one as yet, but the trend is moving up, and on balance, for me, I would say it's a buy.
Now, I found in the crypto space, the type of things I like to invest in are projects that I feel like there's a solid team delivering technology that makes the blockchain space better. And when it makes the blockchain space better, it's like this evolution of the internet, or Web3, is happening. And in the future, as more and more people come into crypto will continue to get easier. Right now, it's quite hard to be in crypto for new people. It's like drinking from a fire hose. They have to think about too many things. What chain is this on? What kind of wallet do I hold? All these different things that really, for the internet to become so easy, or for crypto and blockchain to be so easy, grandma can use it without really knowing that she's using it. It's going to take some things. And WAN chain is one of the companies that's really building the interconnectivity and interoperability so that a lot of things can happen behind the scenes as safely as possible, so people don't have to think about it. So WAN chain, they developed great cross-chain bridge technology with a great mechanism on how liquidity can be provided for those cross-chain transactions to happen, they've continued to add most of the major networks. There are most of the major chains, and delivering on their vision of what they said they were going to do when they launched, which was making blockchain interoperable across the chains. Now, I was hoping to see a bigger gain during the bull market here of 2021, because I had been buying for dirt cheap back here, and I picked up some for like 12 and 14 cents. I was super excited to get WAN chain so cheap, and it did only go to like $2.50. So I still made some decent gains, and I took some profits there. But I had higher hopes for this, and it didn't really realize that because a lot of their cross-chain technology was still being developed, and so their technology wasn't ready to roll during that run, and so they didn't get as much traction as I was hoping. However, fast forward 3.5 years, and their technology, I think, is doing awesome. Their cross-chain bridge technology, they're working on technology so that you can be on one chain and buy NFTs on other chains, and it can be held in your wallet without you having to think about what chain it's on. And that makes the vision of what I think the world will do, like how blockchain will work in the future, start to come together. And leading that, I think at some point they catch the narrative again and do well. So I do like to buy. Look at this, this nice smooth rounding bottom here. Tells you you're right near the bottom. Now you're not at the bottom. That was 17 cents, but you're not far from it with potentially big upside. Now, right back here, they actually went to $10, even though it doesn't show it. And so when I look at things, I'm like, can this do 100x? Can this do 50x? What are the probabilities? Well, at a $46 million market cap, if this catches some traction, can it go to a $4.6 billion market cap? Well, it could. It could. And I think the probable range for this is 50 to 100x. So I like WAN chain. And yeah, I'm excited for what the future is going to do. They're also a strategic partner of the channel, which I'm super picky on which projects I would allow to be a strategic partner. So right now there's only DEVVE and WAN chain. And so if you join us when we do our Friday live streams, I know this is Friday, but this is not a Friday live stream. We did it last week. We give away DEVVE and WAN chain tokens, essentially tokens from our strategic partners. All right, let's take a look at Bumper. Boy, I know we're running late and I wanted to add in a bunch. I don't know that we're going to have time other than the super chat. Let's take a look at Bumper. So we have, because I have to get to our Rainmaker private chat for our Discord members, those who have joined the Patreon, which gives you access to the Discord. And we do every Friday chat starting actually 13 minutes ago. So we're running a little bit late for that. But I was glad to have Paul's time. And so, yeah, I want to make this time with Paul a priority.
Yeah, we can always catch up on it next Friday if you want to do a similar thing given the new year. But we can talk about that in the, in our Telegram. So with regard to Bumper, it's obviously showing signs of strength. Great that it's doing it, given that its use case is perfectly aligned to the sort of market we've just seen, protecting profits, market volatility, etc. It has been on a downward trend, breaking its prior low, and looking. Obviously, I wouldn't want to buy it at these points because the trend is down. So what I was saying before was it needed to show us some form of a kickoff for the trend, an impulsive move, which is what we've got here to say that, okay, it's starting a new chapter and a new phase, which it's done very aggressively, which is great. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's completely out of the woods, but it's a very good starting point. We've still got this resistance line, this final resistance line up here for it to break through. It's got resistance at 2.7 cents above. But I like this as a potential reversal pattern. So I'm going to say that this is a buy for me. And as long as it stays above 1.5 cents, I think it might come back there for a pullback, perhaps even mirror this move at 1.3 cents. But then it should turn around and go back up again. Breakout point is 2.5 cents right here, this horizontal line where there's loads of resistance, where it's just come off that. That might even in time kind of marry in with this line here, and it might break both at the same time. But this is a good moment for it, in the sense that the market environment is conducive to this sort of project. We know what it does. It's just that it's not really been responding to it, and there's been a few things in that area that have been similar. So it's great to see that it's now responding, and I'd just like to see it build on these gains. So for me, it's showing enough to tentatively step into it, and as it starts to break these higher levels, I'll get more aggressive on the bullish side.
Yes. Bumper is another one of those ones that I think the story really has not been told yet. What they're doing is not generally aware, but what they're doing, I think, is earth-shattering in a way to provide better downside protection for if like things reverse against you, to be able to lock in your profits. Now, one of the ways used for the last 50 years has been options, and using options to hedge your downside risk, as well as potentially make upside gains. But Bumper has a new way using smart contracts and liquidity to hedge that downside risk that often leads to lower fees than what options are. And I say often because it depends on where pricing is at. Just overall, it's most often cheaper to hedge through Bumper's thing. It's what their models have been showing. But sometimes options are cheaper. But it is an innovation that I really like the way it works, that you can lock in a certain price. So say your Bitcoin goes to 100,000, you can lock it in at 95% of that value and pay a premium for that position. And what happens is that if Bitcoin reverses down to 40,000, you can cash in that locked in position to the 95,000 point. And then you could turn around and buy Bitcoin back super cheap. I'm really looking forward to Bumper getting some traction. I hope they do, because sometimes amazing stories don't get told before they run out of funds. In other words, they have the greatest idea in the world, but they didn't have a long enough runway to make it. And talking to Bumper, that's been one of my questions. Now, they told me like a year ago that they had like 2.5 more years of runway. So hopefully they still have lots of runway for DeFi's narrative to really hit. And I think in the DeFi narrative, Bumper can do really well. Now, they recently hired a new marketing person that is getting them in front of newer audiences in greater awareness, because for Bumper to go crazy, it really needs much broader awareness than it has. And so I like what their new marketing person is doing. Still, the price has gotten absolutely punished. And sometimes, like Paul was saying earlier, that the general sentiment is often wrong on things. So when everyone thinks, okay, yeah, gosh, Bitcoin's price is amazing and it's just keep going up, they're late in that. Maybe it goes up a little bit more, but they're late to it. When you see a price chart like this, people often make the assumption that it's been going down for so long, it's just going to keep going down. And I could pull you just about every chart of everything that's done well, that's been out for a while, and you'll see a period where its price has done exactly this before it reversed. So I think when Bumper actually hit below a penny here, it got way too cheap. And it's still way too cheap at 1.87 cents. It's way too cheap. So I love this one at this price. Now, I put in another $50,000 when it hit 5 cents. And so it's less than half price of that. It's an amazing deal. And I'm not disappointed with that buy at all. I think that buy is going to do incredibly well for me. Had I known it was going to go to a penny, yeah, I just would have left some $50,000 on the sidelines to buy it at a penny as like, you know, a future Christmas gift to myself. Boy, that price was so incredible. I mean, even still at this price, the market cap is $3.6 million with a fully diluted value of 4.6. If this catches the traction that I think it could, based on what their technology can do, this could be $1 billion or $10 billion or $20 billion market cap project, and it's nowhere near there. So sometimes when it's so far away, it seems like that traction will never hit. Sometimes it doesn't hit. But if it does, it's going to be a crazy wild ride from here, an amazingly wild ride. Bro is saying Bump doesn't really have it figured out yet. They just had what essentially was a protocol fail a few days ago. He's not completely wrong there. They don't have tons of liquidity on there. Like, more liquidity would have helped this problem, and they had to make some adjustments to their protocol. And so some of that's a learning curve. We had this kind of stuff happen with Cardano in the early days with the testnet and the other thing. Solana has had their protocol fail how many times? So many times. And yes, market cap is so big. So Bro isn't incorrect. It is something to be aware of. Does it mean that the protocol won't work long term? It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it's something to be aware of. And we've seen Solana's network congest and fail multiple times at a major breakdown points. We've also seen it with Cardano and their testnet, and we've seen it with some other things. So do keep in mind failures like this. Does it ultimately mean it can't do well? No, but this is definitely one, if you're interested in, do further research in. Watch the interviews with the team, with the Bumper team, and see if it makes sense. For me, at this price, it's a big buy. I love it. Let's look at one more, Paul. Let's look at OMI. I know there's a lot of different suggestions and some that came in before that even, but we only got time for one more, and I'm just going to move it to the front of the line because I want to look at this one.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we can, we'll get to them next week in the new year. So yeah, OMI back below this watermark, which is a shame, but it's still on a rising path. In fact, it has actually retested the breakout point, the first breakout point, or the breakout level that started this whole move, this whole first move to the upside, where I shifted from a sort of neutral to a short-term tentative bullish view. Yeah, I didn't want to see it come back this far, but this is what markets do. You can't the markets do what they want to do, and that's kind of it, really. But it's in a much better position than it was. There's more signs of buying, and again, it just seems like we're gonna have to be a bit more patient with this one until it gets back over this waterline and stays over it. It's unusual that it's traded like this above it. Usually what you would get is a more compressed area of price action and then another squeeze. So it's potentially just a bit too volatile to suggest that it was what we call a continuation pattern. But for it to go up and reverse this is almost symmetrical. The way it's gone up, made a pattern, and then reverse is quite unusual. But I think the focus here for me is the fact that these lows are rising, and whilst there is volatility, it's still pushing the market in a much better direction. A lot of capitulation going on down here. We know that for a fact, and sentiment was extremely negative. We're still higher. So still tentatively bullish on this. I know we've got to tread carefully, but I think it does justify with these higher lows to go with this trend. Further out again, we've got the big resistance point now at this 308. That's going to be a very important level in the future. So when we cross that, that's another point to get more aggressive. And then we've got this level with these three all the way up here as well. So there's some nice levels to aim for in 2025, and we'll just have to see how it pans out. But for the moment, I think this will be a tentative buy. We'll have to just tread carefully until this volatility settles down a little bit.
Yes, I like OMI at this. Now, a lot of what I use to buy, even when the charts look a little bit scary, and they look less scary now than what OMI had been looking like, because if recently you had checked out OMI's price, and let's show it here. If you've been looking at OMI's price before this last little run, it just looked like this. and it looked like it would just continue down from here. Then you're seeing these signal, okay, maybe we are ready for the turnaround finally. But I love it. This present price is an amazing price. So I am buying some more OMI. So not just do I say it's a buy, but I am buying more now. Everyone's going to front run me on this because I freed up the money yesterday to make the buy, but I haven't actually bought it yet. But I did free up the money from another position. If you're wondering what that is, well, you know, I shared with in those that are in my gold level get access to my trades. I share with them what I trade. That's where I put the information at. But yeah, I did free up some funds so I can buy some OMI at this price. Incredible deal, in my opinion. I think OMI has an amazing upside potential from here. Really like it. I like fundamentally what VV is doing and what they're adding. I know sentiment is terrible, that OMI will just go down from here and it's dead, and the project team, it's a slow rug pull, and all the things that they say. No, I like it at this. And I'm trading against the sentiment, which is usually what I do. So not just against the sentiment, but research would suggest to me that the company is stronger than anybody else in this space, the digital collectibles space, and they're a leader in it and with major partnerships. So I think it has really good upside for me. And that's why I've been buying it. Cool, everyone. Thank you, Paul, so much for joining us. Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. Merry Christmas to all of you across the world. I hope you guys had a good one. Paul, thanks for making some time to visit with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, guys. And, you know, Happy New Year to everyone. See you on the other side.
All right. We'll see you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's amazing to have Defini loan Paul to us. It's been like a 3-year thing, and so grateful to have Paul. It really helps with my bigger vision for the channel, which is this idea of growing savage crypto investors, people that understand investing like to a savage level, and they're not shaken out by everybody fudding something or general sentiment, and they're able to take informed decisions, to set their emotions to the side, enact really logical, to run into the burning building when everyone's fleeing, when it makes sense of that burning building is the place to be for investment. Man, I love this space. I love the volatility. It's created an opportunity that I've waited for my whole life, with such massive swings from lows to highs in such a short time frame. So every 4 years it goes crazy. I hope you've committed for yourself for the long term, that in the coming 4 years you can make life-changing gains. Now, this coming year is going to be a great one if it plays out like the charts are suggesting it's going to. I think 2025 does. I think just like we've had a major run every 4 years, I think 2025 is that year. Then it's time to take profits, set those to the side, and then there will probably be a bear market again. And then play that ride again. Why not? What else are you going to do over the coming 5 years that can make you completely financially free? And this is the place to be. Even better than YouTube, which is free and you can watch for free, which is amazing. When you're ready, join the private Patreon group. And it's a little bit of a pain. You join Patreon, then you've got to get access to the Discord. And once you're in there, you make some lifelong friends with the Rainmaker family that will help increase your skills as an investor. And just having that community has been a big thing for so many of you that have joined. And it's become like a big family. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. You guys, I hope you have a good new year. This wrap is for all of you. And then I will be jumping into our Discord for our Friday chat.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, right before you could was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss, cause I always made the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. We're learning and growing, and when it's slow, will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I'll follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.